Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of Wrestling.com. I'm joined by John Clark to talk about WWE NXT 2.0. John, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'll give you the same answer that I gave when you asked me before we started recording. I would have been better, or I would be better, if I did not have to sit through 10 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes. I don't know how actually long it was. 10 minutes or whatever it was of poker when I thought I was watching a wrestling show. I guess I may have accidentally flipped the channel and started watching ESPN 3 or something here of poker.
I'm all in. I got my poker chips ready.
John's showing us his poker chips. We're going to be talking all about that. Before we get into all this, let's say a mixed bag of a show here.
BS. All this BS.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Before we do talk about it, I just want to remind you all this show, everything we do here is available on all of our platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Maybe we've got you covered. I'm gonna save the poker talk for a little bit. I guess we can start with the main event here because that was one of the good things, one thing to look forward to. Because last week we found out we have WarGames coming up now in less than a month. I think it's Sunday, December 5th. And now with the main event here, very clearly indicating that we're gonna likely have all but confirming we're gonna have a WarGames match between Team Dakota Kai and Team Raquel Gonzalez, and that would likely involve Toxic Attraction for Team Dakota, and also Io Shirai and Cora Jade for Team Raquel. There, I think it's.
So we start.
She's hurt though. She literally she's out. I think she tore her ACL and or something. She's not. I don't think she's gonna be back in time for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be pretty surprised. I was surprised they had Zoe Stark come out on her crutches in the first place, which seemed a little surprising to me there. I believe WarGames is usually 5-on-5. I think, or is it 4-on-4?
4-on-4.
Okay, so they've got Raquel, Cora, Io. I don't see it being Zoe, so I'm not sure what they're gonna do there. That's just saying no way that Zoe's ready. I mean, yeah, she had surgery. That would be very aggressive to expect her to come back for WarGames, especially. And I guess there are some ways, if you want to get really crazy, you could be like, oh, we're gonna have her be in the match and not like do anything. But I think they'll probably try and maybe it's Persia Parada or something like that if they want to try and incorporate her or somebody else there. But this was good. It was a nice, strong show closing angle. Io Shirai herself said WarGames after we had this brawl. We had a very good main event match with Dakota and Raquel, former partners turned rivals here. Obviously, a lot of history there. A very good match. Mandy Rose, the NXT Women's Champion, attacked Raquel to ruin that match, and then we had this wild brawl to kind of stop WarGames. The fans were chanting WarGames, and Io herself said WarGames. So all but official there. John, you tweeted about it right when it happened that why can we get our beloved William Regal to say his line? This is his thing, John. Like, why? It feels like we are so, or not we, they are so firmly like deviating from the NXT of old, to even to the extent of like not even having William Regal really on TV anymore. And that's just, I think that's a shame. I thought that it would have really popped a lot of the fans to have Rio come out, just say like one word, pretty much, and do that. But what do you think about this setup for WarGames here, a month out, less than a month out?
Yeah, I hope we get a men's match too, not just the women. But of course, in regard to this particular match, I think that it makes sense because everybody here kind of has history, but with William Regal not appearing at all in the last couple months, ever since basically Samoa Joe, his guard, was no longer his guard, we haven't really seen William Regal since then, and it certainly has felt different, and the show has felt different. And of course, there had been some reports today that uh, they are exploring the possibility of making NXT a no longer PG show. They have considered making it TV 14, which I believe is what it was in the Attitude Era, right? It was TV
Yeah,
14 then, I
yeah.
think. So that would give them the ability to basically say more words than they can now and do more edgier stuff than they do now. But apparently USA Network is open to it. WWE is open to it. But I'm not sure how much potential it can get to really be executed. But
Well, John, I think tonight we saw the most clear, or not, maybe not the most clear, but yet another clear indicator that they are heading in that direction or exploring that, because we quite literally had Cameron Grimes ask Duke Hudson if his balls or grapefruits or raisins. So I don't know what more like we could possibly do here in terms of like other than actually changing the rating with some of the more edgy promos or lines they're being able to deliver. Not even mentioning some of the presentation of the women's division, or at least some members of the women's division. That's definitely a potential can of worms there. But yeah, that was definitely not a surprising report where it's like they've already been kind of, or not even kind of, they've been very clearly trying to be more edgy. We've talked about that before, so that was maybe more of just kind of evidence of that. So if that change does happen, well, I will not be surprised. And yeah, as you said, to what effect, I don't know. Again, obviously often the emphasis is on ratings, and the 2.0 era or revamp has not really boosted ratings, or I mean, it's obviously it's still not really going,
It's
but
affected them in a negative way, kind of.
right,
I mean, the
right.
first couple of weeks it was all good, but now it's not like that.
No. So some more thoughts on war games here. Maybe making it 5-on-5. Just maybe 5-on-5 makes a little more sense, because then you could add like a Kaylee Ray. You could add the team of Casey Carter, Casey Catanzaro, and Caden Carter. I think that would make sense. They have options here, but and maybe, or on the kind of along that same vein, maybe you add Persia and Indy Hartwell on one side, and then maybe two other people on the other side. They have options. I think this will be a very good match. I mean, as we saw the last war games, the woman out there stole the show. And now Johnny mentioned a minute ago, thinking about the pencil men's match. We're talking about missing William Regal. We've talked about for weeks now, just missing generally the NXT of old. I will double down on that tonight by saying I very much missed that. But I think we are definitely setting up a kind of generational clash in the men's division 4 games between the NXT of new and old, because the old guard, I guess at this point, really the three that make 100% sense to me for this kind of thing would be Ciampa, Gargano, and Pete Dunne, maybe, and Kyle O'Reilly for another. So maybe if they can find another way to kind of like, I was going to say Roderick Strong would make the most sense at this point, but he's with Diamond Mine. So maybe if they want to do, I don't know. I think we're definitely heading for old school versus new school, because Ciampa had a promo tonight where he was, I mean, and this has been his thing. He's saying, oh, we've got all these this new school. They don't have integrity. They don't really have the heart that we did back in the day. Grayson Waller had a promo criticizing Champ's generation for grinding on the independent scene, and I think I don't know if he said it himself, but Ciampa referenced that back in the day when he was working on the independents, he would be working for a handshake and a hot dog, and he told Grayson Waller, "I'll show you what you can do with my hot dog." This show was like wild, man. It's like, oh boy. But like we were just saying, if you had any doubt that they are going for that more edgy kind of thing, there you go. But obviously, with that being said, we do know next week Ciampa will face Grayson Waller. That the outcome there is not very much in question. But with this potential kind of a new school, old school kind of thing, I see Ciampa, Gargano, O'Reilly, and again, Roderick Strong makes sense. But otherwise, we are very much on a dwindling number of NXT OGs, if you will. Maybe Pete Dunne there as well, if I mentioned him, versus guys like Kamal Hayes, Braun Breaker, obviously a big one. Maybe Von Wagner, depending how things go there. But that's definitely the direction I see for War Games. And then I would say that makes it interesting of them what you do for title matches. Stephen Chambers saying, predicting a Ciampa versus Braun Breaker rematch in War Games. I think that makes sense. I think that's clearly one of the potential things that could be on the table based on what we've seen so far. But at the same time, like I really think the money here is this generational thing, and I think that's what I would like to see at least.
Yeah, I'd like to see Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, and take your pick of whoever else go up against, say, Tommaso, Johnny, Pete, and again, take your pick on the fourth of the other side. But I think those three would be a solid pick for. I mean, you could do Tony D'Angelo and then Dexter Lumis. There you go. There's your 4-4. I think that would make sense. Will they go that way? We think so, but we don't know for sure, especially if they want to do this one-on-one championship match, which it seems like they want to. So I think we can safely say it's going to be one of those two, because really they haven't built any other men's feuds that could potentially fill that void in a WarGames match.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, we're getting that's just saying maybe Diamond Mine versus a team. We saw Odyssey Jones and Jacket Time, the worst named team in the business, pick up a win over Diamond Mine here. So if they want to fill that out and do a 4-on-4 somehow, I think they could. Not sure who else would be. I guess they could do Hachiman for Diamond Mine as the fourth guy, even though he's more the coach. I don't know. But I think that to me, this just makes sense. Sometimes you got to do what makes sense. This whole NXT 2.0 thing has been all about old school versus new school. So why not kind of like, tell that story? Be like, hey, we've got these new guys, we've got the old guys, and now I would imagine I got some of the things that Ciampa was saying tonight. I'm not speaking for him, but I could see how someone would think that. It's like these guys are coming in, and like you got a guy like Von Wagner getting a title shot his first night on the show. And now tonight, pinning Roderick Strong, Cruiserweight champion. There's some valid beef there. So I hope we see this. Obviously, we have no idea what actually is going to happen. We still have several weeks here. But speaking of these old school guys, we had at least in the meantime, two old school guys will be in one match next week when we have Pete Dunne, Johnny Gargano, and the one of the leaders of the new school, Carmelo Hayes, for the North American title. We had Johnny laid out the challenge for Carmelo Hayes. Pete Dunne interrupts. So that's a triple threat match with DJ asking if John's trying to be a babyface again. I mean, he was kind of like going for that kind of cool, tough guy babyface thing a little bit by not insulting Carmelo so much by being like, "Who are you? Like, what's your deal? Coming in here and being a jerk, basically." Wondering, if we might see a tag team match between the two. We do know we're getting that triple threat match, but could see a tag team match maybe the week after that. Again, if I don't want to harp on it. I feel like if we're going for this old school, new school thing, having Pete Dunne, you kind of need to establish in some ways. Well, I guess no, they could kind of play loose with it, have like pick your sides. Like I've tweeted about it, like I'm 100% Team Ciampa, NXT of old all the way. But you could have plenty of other fans be like, no, I'm on board with Carmelo and these new Braun Breaker and these new guys. So is he trying to be a babyface? Are they trying to make him a babyface? I would say it kind of came across like that, but I would also say they don't necessarily need to like firmly, make the switch either. That's kind of my read on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But does anything they do really make sense?
No. And that was perfectly evidenced by the poker showdown that we got tonight. Oh boy. So, John, we had an actual poker table in the ring. They explained the rules with a very handy-dandy on-screen graphic. They very much treated this like a legit poker competition. I will say, I saw some thoughts on Twitter, people saying credit for doing something different. Oh, yes, this was different. But for me, I mean, I'm the same guy that loved all the index stuff and still does, that likes different things, that likes to shake it up here. But at the end of the day, like I'm watching a wrestling show, and to me, like the romance stuff can be part of wrestling, and it makes sense. Other things you can shake it up, you can deviate from formula, and it makes sense. When you do a full poker game and have it take a solid, like again, I say it felt like 10 minutes of the show. What are we doing here?
This is like last year when the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits played golf during Raw, and they did like 9 holes.
And for that, I'll say it was a pandemic era, okay? Like anything they did could be forgiven because they were just so desperately trying to give us entertainment and content and to keep the show going at all costs. Now NXT, it's in the Capitol Wrestling Center. They have crowds there.
So
now we do this.
Yeah, and I agree. And here is what I would say about that. Regarding like playing poker like on the show, it's kind of like the fact that they did this, and like you said, it did take up 10 minutes of the show. They tried to do something different, like you said, it didn't work. So casual fans that have no knowledge of poker at all were certainly lost here and had no idea. I mean,
that would be me. That would be me.
I was like, I don't know. Too. I mean, me too. I mean, it was like last year whenever they had the golf. Like, not a lot of people just, unless you play golf, you typically don't just watch golf on TV.
No,
so people don't know the terminology. They don't know what stuff means. But At the same time, I think poker fans were probably embarrassed with this display because literally the entire game came down to the first hand. Like literally the first hand of the poker game was it. So for that, I say Duke Hudson's gimmick appears to be falling apart because it's all centered around trying to beat Grimes in poker, which we all know poker is basically luck, and he has not won yet, so he has no luck. He lost his cool, of course. He got bluffed. For somebody that is supposed to be a serious poker player, as I saw people saying online, he certainly doesn't act like it. He's constantly outwitted, bluffed, and um, of course we all know this is eventually leading to a Grimes versus Hudson match, which should be a good match. I think it's been almost a month now. It's time to kind of get away from the poker and get back to the wrestling.
Please, like again, I said at the beginning of the show, I thought I was watching a wrestling show and took a very unexpected, well, not unexpected. They announced this ahead of time. I just didn't think they would go all the way with it.
This is like something that would be like reserved for like say the 24/7 championship. Do you remember
Right.
like 2 years ago when they had a NASCAR driver, Kyle
Yep.
Busch, come on
Yep.
Raw and win the 24/7 championship, and then he went back to his car? Like that's the kind of thing that this I think would be made for, is some kind of celebrity cameo or 24/7 segment or the stuff like they used to do with the APA, not like a legitimate serious promo segment that's supposed to have meaning behind it, because it certainly didn't. I mean, they weren't even like playing poker to say like the winner gets to pick a stipulation of our match. It was literally just we're playing poker to see who's better at poker.
Yeah. That's what it boils down to. DJ, again, we're saying we're trying to be positive and saying, hey, kudos for trying something different. It's not always going to work, and that's largely been a theme of the 2.0 era so far. But DJ saying nothing wrong with trying a fresh idea to add it to the show, but kind of John, like what you're saying with these, actual celebrities in the field. If you're going to do that, might as well bring in. He names poker professionals like Chris Moneymaker and Phil Ivey. I must confess, I have no idea who those are. I imagine they're very famous in the poker world. But as Herman's saying, I too, I never learned poker, don't know how to play, never into it, let alone watch it on TV, let alone watch it on a wrestling show. Nash is saying she has no clue what they did tonight, but she enjoyed the Street Profits Raiders, the Viking Raiders. I mean, yeah, I thought like, at the time that was cool. And again, like you could really
Axe
just kind of
throwing, golf, go-karting.
like that was fun, man. And this, like, I liked. Cameron Grimes can make anything work as best as he can. Like he had some funny lines. He said like Hudson was sweating like Shaq at the free throw line. I like that. Like,
Also, the fact that like they literally did this in the ring. Like
yeah, literally.
remember back in like the mid 2000s when like MVP and Matt Hardy had like oh, you weren't watching back then,
No,
but
I remember that. That was right, like
so
roughly when I
they were
started
playing
watching.
like basketball like in the ring, like they had a hoop up and everything, and they were playing one-on-one basketball. Like, come on.
This was, yeah, that was also kind of like, a little odd that like, there was quite literally a table in the ring and they were very much treating this like a real thing. I will say, again, trying to be a little positive, it's like they were doing this weird thing of like trying to cut promos while playing poker and like kind of using the game to cut their promos. So like I kind of like I could get behind that a little bit, but just again the fact that they actually played the game, that it went on
Here's
way
the
too long.
question. Was the poker game rigged, or was it just legitimately random where it was like just known that Hudson was just going to fold no matter what his hand was? Like, what if he would have had like straight aces or a royal flush and he's like, nope, I fold? Like, you know what I mean?
That's a good question. The easy answer is to say like I doubt they put that much thought into it. They probably just like yeah, Hudson's gonna lose. Who really cares?
See,
Whatever.
Nesh is with me. She was wondering too if it was legit. I mean, I had that thought, like, what if this is legitimately random, but somehow Duke Hudson gets like a really good hand? Like, how are you
That'd
just
be
gonna
really
have him
funny.
fold then?
That's a good point. And I guess it all worked out, and now we're looking forward to, or at least maybe not looking forward to. We're asking what happens next. With one comment saying that Steven wondering if it might be a hair versus hair match because Duke did have a meltdown. He did not keep his poker face. He got very mad, and then he got a toolbox from the ring. At first, he grabbed a hammer. I was like, "Whoa, this guy is going off here." And then he dialed it back a little bit by getting scissors and cut Cameron's beard and some of his hair. So that was also my thought that we might be going toward potentially a hair versus hair match. But it's weird because Duke Hudson doesn't have a lot of hair. Usually, when you do this kind of thing, it's like people that have some good amount of hair. Not to say that's always the case, but like it seems a little interesting to me to have this be the case. But anytime you have someone cutting hair, it feels like that's where they're going. With Nesh saying that definitely feels like that sounds right based on what we saw there. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, if that's the outcome here, I guess as long as we get away from the poker side of things, I can't complain too much of that because this did not really do it for me. DJ was a good shout. Looking back to WWE ECW because they also played some poker back in the day. Very very different kind of poker though. Balls Mahoney as the dealer. They played strip poker back in the day because it was a very different time. But we're talking about edgy NXT potentially and. At this point, you never know. But we did mention a minute ago with Kamala Hayes, Johnny Gargano, and I mentioned what kind of set that up. So we started the show, maybe a little surprisingly, with Tony D'Angelo and Dexter Lumis. And this was definitely a match where I was curious how they'd go about it. And they wound up doing several like social exclusive vignettes throughout the week of Tony talking about like Indy, talking about Dexter, kind of setting this up a little bit, and very clearly positioning himself as the heel a little bit, trying to be kind of the homewrecker in a way. And then Dexter comes out to the ring and he has his newest painting showing quite literally Tony is sleeping with the fishes. I like that. I thought that was pretty funny. But again, interesting match here of like two guys with very strong personalities. Previously, it seemed like Tony was maybe in a weird way a babyface, even though he quite clearly was implicated in the disappearance of a person. And then this, I thought this was good. And then Tony wound up cheating. He used Dexter's painting to win. And that, again, we're talking about the old school, new school thing. Very clearly, any like new person on NXT is going over the person that was there 6 months ago. And to me, again, I don't want to keep harping on it, but I'm like, man, like, nobody's safe from this. All right, we saw Roderick Strong get pinned. We saw Dexter Lumis get pinned. I have a feeling next week that triple threat match we mentioned, Johnny Gargano's going to get pinned, which not loving that. But then we had Trick Williams and Kamala Hayes attack Dexter Lumis, and for whatever reason, Johnny Gargano's in the back, and he waits until after they stomp his son-in-law's hand in a chair to make the save. And John, I ask you, like, why? Why would Papa John not come out and save his boy from getting his hand stomped on and potentially written off of TV?
Well, Loomis is clearly playing second fiddle to Gargano here, and I think that he could have easily challenged Carmelo, at some point. I think Dunn and Gargano will probably give him good matches, but I think this whole thing was really about giving the rookie a big win soon and too fast. You know what I mean? Like Loomis is quiet. He's obviously silent. He's unique. I think he could have offered much more to both Tony D'Angelo and Carmelo Hayes. And like you said, maybe they're writing him off tonight. I don't know. I do agree. Like there is second to no chance that Pete Dunne or Johnny Gargano actually win. I mean, if they do, they will be pinning each other. Like Carmelo Hayes, if he loses, will not be involved in this decision. But we actually had, speaking of reports, we were talking about another report that came out that Carmelo Hayes and I think Trick Williams as well were backstage at SmackDown last week, and they turned heads, and people were interested and thought that they had the potential to be something serious down the line, and you always like to hear that. I mean, you really only need a few higher ups to like you and what you're all about to be relevant. This isn't, it's not rocket science, and it's not like other sports where you actually have to be good to succeed. Like if somebody likes you and they're gonna make it so that you're good and that you succeed. So I think that he'll retain next week, and then hopefully maybe this evolves into a WarGames type situation.
Could happen. But definitely you mentioned that those reports about Carmelo. He worked a dark match, and we told Hit Row got very much fast tracked. So I have to imagine, as you said, all it takes is like essentially one person, sometimes quite literally, to look at you and say, "Oh, hey, we might have something here," and then lo and behold, then you kind of wind up on Raw, SmackDown, whatever it might be, and get an opportunity like that. So I feel like that is not, a crazy prediction at this point. Kind of think that might happen at some point soon, but 100%, Kamala Hayes is not losing this title unless, as we are just saying, they're thinking, oh, we're going to call Kamala up like 2 weeks from now, and I don't think that'll be the case. I think they want to kind of build NXT around him in the very short-term future, but I think his days in NXT in a long-term sense are not, because I think he'll be up sooner and later in that sense. But DJ pointed out that kind of on the flip side, Johnny Gargano and someone else, Kyle O'Reilly, did a dark match as well. So thankfully, plenty of people are getting opportunities like that. So it's good to see they're getting some opportunities on both sides of the spectrum. And that's just saying they've got to find a way to balance the new and the old. 100%. Again, they are very much going for the emphasis on the new school and kind of stepping away from the old school, and I'd be much, much happier if they balanced it a little bit. I do want to shout out a special comment from Noah Orlando Verlone saying, "Hey guys, just want to say the Goats of Wrestling podcast on Facebook inspired me to start a wrestling fan page today. Just want to say thank you for inspiring my fan page. It's called Wrestling Fantasy League. Limits created by Slughouse Market. Noel, we appreciate you so much. We would not be here without any of you guys and your support. So we're gonna leave that up there for a second, and I'm gonna go check it out after done recording. Noel, if you want to DM me or whatever, or at me, just like so I can share it for myself, because again, we appreciate you guys want to get the word out about that, and all you guys, because in doing that, Noel, you're doing what we do here and enjoying the wrestling, and by taking the initiative to create a page like that. So I commend you for doing that. That's very, very cool. And again, always appreciate the kind words. We do what we do here. We do for you guys. Even though sometimes here NXT, man, it's not the NXT of old, and we're still I myself am still trying to kind of to move on from that here, but we move on. We must. With DJ asking about LA Knight here, and kind of combining here with Nesha saying she's upset how they did Grayson Waller tonight, and on the flip side, we had DJ asking why they're ruining LA Knight with just promos. He has too much talent to be staying backstage. Can leave in the back, either release him or send him the main roster. I mean, LA Knight is definitely a guy. It sucks, right? Because I think when he arrived, like, he to me screamed major star. I really liked his work as $1 million champion. I really think he had a great feud with Cameron Grimes. He has a great look. He's a great heel. He has good promos, and maybe that's kind of the problem. He's so good at promos that they're like, oh, we're just gonna have him cut these promos, get him on the show. But not really do much else with them. I have a problem here because he's still upset that Grayson Waller tried to like butt in and host Halloween Havoc instead of him. And I'm like, dude, it's midway through November. It's time to kind of move on to bigger and better things here. So I think it's a little odd to have that be the whole impetus of this feud here. And now we're seeing Grayson seemingly be set up as the kind of like sacrificial lamb for Ciampa next week. Whereas the LA Knight, like, is he going to have a match with Grayson Waller? Like what? I don't know. We get it, but more support for LA Knight here. Steven saying push him. I haven't seen that since he arrived. Big fan of him. I thought he had a pretty kind of slow burn of an arrival. Then he got that feud with Grimes. I thought we were kind of going somewhere, and then the wheels kind of fell off again. I think he arrived. We can easily look back at it now and say he arrived at the wrong time, because he arrived and not too long after it's 2.0, and him, I think he's probably 36 or so. He's a little up there for the WWE quote unquote age range. So maybe that kind of works against him as well. Noel saying he thinks they're doing LA Knight like they're doing CM Punk and AEW. Not quite sure what he means in terms of he's kind of just going put out there to do promos and stuff and having that slow build, or not quite sure what the direction is. I would agree in that sense. But yeah, big fan of LA Knight. I want better for him, and to me, it's disappointing that he is kind of getting shoved to the background here a little bit. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think he should have been moved up in the draft. He wasn't, so at least he's doing something, I guess.
Something. I mean, hopefully, again, maybe with this old school, new school thing. Ironically, at this point, he's like, I guess, more equivalent to the old school than the new school in a way. Or maybe he could go rogue and be the in between, because he was on one of the like later big signings of the old school era. So maybe he'll kind of like thread the line of being in between there. But speaking of the relative old school, one of the acts in the old school is Legado del Fantasma, and we saw their at least seeming leader Santos Escobar return tonight by helping his stalemates beat down Zion Quinn. Zion picked up the win over Andre Chase, but he got beaten down by Legado. But to me, this is interesting because it seems like Elektra Lopez might be the real leader of Legado, because she was kind of leading the charge of having Legado beat up Zion Quinn, saying, "Oh, nobody rejects me, nobody says no to me, and I'm gonna teach you a lesson about it." But I'm sorry, or not sorry. I can't take Zion Quinn seriously after seeing this man do some karaoke for "Sexy Boy," John. Like, I can't do it.
Oh
Can't.
boy.
Can't.
Well, where exactly do you think this is going? Like, what are we doing here? Like you always say, what are we doing here? Like, where's this going?
WarGames, not WarGames match. I mean, I guess at this point, Santos versus Zion, I guess would make sense. Which is fine. I think it'll be a good match. I've liked what I've seen of Zion so far. I think it's got a good. Okay. I think that's a good look. I've liked him in the ring, but that sexy boy segment's really, they dug a hole, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get out of that one, because, like, again, I said it the week it happened. Like, good luck trying to make anybody take Zion Quinn seriously after that. Again, Stephen Chambers saying maybe we'll see this turn into Santos versus Zion Quinn, maybe at WarGames. Yeah, and based on what we've seen so far, I would have no reason to think that Santos would win that match, because, again, all the new guys are winning all of these, pretty much every time out, the new guys are winning, which is fine. You got to build new people. But at the same time, we're talking about Tony and Dexter there. It's like, why not have that kind of be a little more of a story, not have him lose the first time out? But I digress. DJ saying another waste of talent with Zion. I wouldn't go that far yet. I'm hopeful. Like, again, I'm not trying to contradict myself. I'm hopeful they can try and, like, damage control here and salvage him. But he took a big ding by going out there and doing some karaoke.
Yeah, Beth Phoenix has said there was some sexual tension out there, which further contributes to the possible TV 14 rating.
John, they quite literally, the new, I think it was for Raw last night, they had the commercial for tonight's show. They had that line about Beth saying sexual tension.
Yep.
And what was it? It was like, it was big something energy. They're like very clear playing off of, you know what? And like that's what they're going for. And again, cool. It's fine. Like, I'm not, like, when it's done right, love it. Like, get cool, man. Like, I'm on board. But one that's more just kind of like trying to be edgy for edgy's sake, not so much. But DJ saying kind of along the same vein, it feels already got some kind of love affair with Zion and Elektra here. But this more feels like a woman scorned kind of thing, because Zion's already kind of spurned her and, like, rejected her, and now she wants revenge. But if you ask me where I think it's going, if I think they're gonna, like, backtrack and try and, like, have them wind up together anyway, okay. Like, I don't know. Luke seems on board. He says he might have to start watching again if they go TV 14.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Hey, again, if it's done right, I think it can be great. But if not, maybe not so much.
Well, and Tito's asking about Jacket Time. So I think we already kind of discussed Jacket Time, but Jacket Time was with Odyssey Jones tonight against the Diamond Mine. The feud between Odyssey Jones and Roderick Strong is pointless to the cruiserweight division, because Odyssey Jones is like 400 pounds, and you have to be under 205 to compete for this title. NXT is literally just going through the motions until they can get a new feud for Diamond Mine, I think. Kushida and Strong obviously is a matchup we could see, but this match did not really have Kushida featured much at all. He's in an odd team with Iki Manjiro with the Creed brothers. They're not going to beat the Creed brothers, and like I said, Nesha Kirsch, the team name is great, but the name Jacket Time sucks. I don't get the point or what this team name represents. I still do not understand. Besides the night that they first got together, they each had jackets on. You don't name a team Jacket Time, because
no.
Yeah, you don't.
You don't. And they did. And they did. Boy, I don't know. I don't know if there's, like, some kind of inside joke that I'm not getting. I don't know.
I hope there is.
did they lose a bet? Like, I don't know. My take on it is more Stephen Chambers saying poor Kushida. This is I feel for him so much. This is like an all-world wrestler getting thrown in a team called Jacket Time for no reason. Like, it'd be like kind of forgivable if it was a comedy act and like I don't know, man, if they like played up on it somehow, but they're just like they're called Jacket Time, and like they wear jackets, John. They wear jackets, and that's it. But 100%, that's just saying they deserve better. And stuff like this, again, this is why I said here, I'm not loving this thing with NXT 2.0. Speaking of which, another thing I didn't love, John, tonight we had NanaCon, or I think it was non-con. We had Grizzly Young Veterans for the second week in a row, in this new kind of character of being con men, I guess, of stealing things and lying to people. Where last week I think it was to some random stranger, because they said, oh, if you can lie to a stranger, you can deceive your opponent and win a match. Okay. And this week, John, they stole the women's tag team titles from Toxic Attraction and eventually gave them back. But they only stole them so they could FaceTime, quote unquote, hence the name non-con. And so they could say, "Oh, we're the tag team champions," even though they were the women's tag team championship titles. This is a thing that happened on NXT tonight. Oh boy!
And then they have a promo later on where they talk about it, and the champs are like, basically like, you're weird. They're doing this awkward thing backstage where like Grizzly Young Veterans is like romantically interested in Toxic Attraction, but they don't want to say it, and they're just going to act like they are. I don't know. It's
I don't know, man. I don't know. Yes, Steven's saying, I don't know where they're going with Grizzly Young Veterans. No idea. I have also no idea where they're going with MSK. We had another vignette tonight, MSK on their quest for the shaman. Not too many hints to really draw from, but DJ noting they had maybe some Easter eggs here with saying MSK found the shaman. They used the line "no more words" in the promo, and that they also, I think, one of the members of MSK tweeted about it as well. I think he had no more words in the promo or in the tweet. So obviously, that screams Jeff Hardy, which would not make any sense in the world to have that Jeff Hardy be this shaman. Again, I said last week, John Morrison makes sense. Shaman is sexy. It's a thing. He's not doing anything on the main roster right now. John, I looked up the spoilers tonight. Spoiler alert for main event. If you watched that show, John Morrison lost to Veer on main event at the tapings. Veer, I kid you not. This man, a former world champion, lost to Veer on main event. This guy,
Veer Mahan.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So this will be better than that for John. Whereas Jeff Hardy, even though they kind of maybe that was a red herring, and it will be John Morrison. Maybe they're trying to kind of add some uncertainty here. I really hope we figure this out before WarGames. I do not be sitting here for a whole other month of trying to figure this out, because I don't know how much longer they can draw it out. And that's just she wants to do John Morrison. Although yes, he does deserve better than losing to Veer, and better than being in this odd storyline. But basically, the whole vignette, they're at an airport. They were quite clearly sneaking drugs or quote unquote supplies through airport security. They then went on the plane, then they got off the plane, and then they hugged for a little too long, and they are still on this quest for the shaman. So yeah, for me, if it's not John Morrison, I don't know. And if it is John Morrison, that's still very weird, because I'm like,
it's weird because people have this little thing where, we all know that Frankie Monet was fired and John Morrison is like, still there, and it's like, is it weird? And yeah,
I don't know, man. I'm so floored by a lot of those releases, Frankie Monet being one of them. But I got to move on. Don't want to dwell on that too much. But one thing we can at least look forward to and question, Savon Wagner, of all people, was on SmackDown last Friday on SmackDown, and he was kind of Adam Pearce's bodyguard, and that was referenced on the show tonight with Kyle O'Reilly calling him that, saying, "Oh, if it isn't Adam Pearce's bodyguard," but then saying he's not worried about it. It's time to go to work. They had a match with Brooks Reed and Josh. Benson, or did I flip that? I don't even know at this point. There are too many people to keep track of. The country boys, John, the real men. That's what they are. That's their thing. For me, we have this backstage kind of exchange with Von Wagner and Kyle O'Reilly. And again, I don't want to like criticize the guy, but like I've kind of like just rebelled against Von Wagner ever since the first night. Gets the title shot, and then he's very much featured ever since. And then that was, call it, just about 2 months ago today. So that Friday was less than 2 months when he shows up on SmackDown, kind of a first kind of clear indicator of a potential call up sooner and later. And I'm like, A, I'm not seeing it in the first place. B, that like again, we're talking about a guy like LA Knight doesn't get called up. A guy like any number of people that I think would be more ready. I don't want to say deserving, but would be more set up to succeed. This guy seems very green to me from promos, from the ring. Yeah, he's got a good look. He's a big dude, but I'm not seeing it. And the fact they show up on SmackDown and they're kind of and they reference it tonight, it's like they seem like they're kind of setting up for that here. But at the same time, it seems like he and Kyle O'Reilly, at least in the short term, are potentially chasing Imperium for the tag titles, and because the Imperium could have promo about them. So that seems to be the short term direction here. Until it seems like until Von Wagner's inevitable call up there.
Yeah, it's oh boy, this could have been a lot better. Both teams have been featured prominently on NXT in the past couple weeks. And then, like we said, Brooks and Jensen looked absolutely terrible, losing so easily to a team that hasn't had zero chemistry. I don't know.
Don't know, man. I don't know. Oh boy. Well, I'm looking at my notes. I mean, I will say it's weird. With NXT these days, like we do the news coverage here for WrestleZone, and a lot of time I'm like, all right, what's really important, right? Like, what's really worth talking about? So obviously, there's the title match next week. There's the WarGames challenge, which will likely be confirmed in short order. That's it. I think that's all there really was. Like there's this, and my girlfriend was sitting next to me on the couch. She's usually at work. She happened to be watching the show, and I said that to her. She's like, "Oh, but there's a lot happening." I'm like, there's a lot happening, but like, is any of it like really like important? Like there's a dividing line there, and that's where we're at here at NXT.
A lot happening is not always a good thing.
No, because a lot happens on Raw. Like the stuff happens up for 3 hours, but is it important? Not always. Stuff
Rarely.
happens. Right. Right. One more thing I had mentioned. So we had a Dexter get attacked, seemingly written off. Indy Hartwell, as a wife would and should, says, "Oh, my husband is hurt," and maybe she overreacted because it's not like he has his leg chopped off. But she said, "Oh, my husband's hurt. He has to go to the hospital. I got to take care of him." So rather than having a tag match with Persia Parada, she goes off to be with Dexter. She poses as a handicap match, and DJ saying that Persia was very impressive, and seemingly being recruited by Robert Stone. Robert Stone was on the ramp there and kind of applauded her, and that seems to be kind of at least a little tease there that might be where she's going. And if that's the case, I read that more like they'd be splitting up the team, which would be very silly, John, because they don't have any teams. So,
care to explain what the heck Robert Stone was even supposed to be doing?
Scouting, I guess.
For what?
He doesn't have a team. Aaliyah got called up to SmackDown. He's
never had a viable team. He needs to.
But now he's looking for one, John. Now he's looking for one. He's got the track record. He's a businessman. People are attracted to that. Maybe
you say so.
Right. I don't know. I think he's a guy that's been very, very like underutilized throughout his whole time in NXT. For a very brief time, I think like at one point last year he was managing Chelsea Green, and she got injured, and then later somewhat called up. Then like that didn't work out. DJ mentioning that he was briefly they were going somewhere with Frank and Renee, and then she got that got dropped, and then she got released. So he's unfortunately been kind of like this unfortunate victim of circumstance, I guess, more than anything, where it's like, and all these like people he's been connected with have gotten either called up for like Aaliyah or released, unfortunately. So that leaves him in a bit of limbo. So now we're sitting here like you, John, is saying like what was he doing? It's like he doesn't have anybody, and like that's not his fault. But Michael's saying admittedly, but they haven't done anything with him. So it is a little surprising that like they're trying to do something with him a little bit. I hope they do. I think he's a very, 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 very talented guy. great. I think he's very just like entertaining, like as a character. So they need to kind of like give him a storyline that sticks and not release people because that's bad. So with that being said, John, all across the board here, again, I say a mixed bag of a show, trying to put it kindly. But what do you think about the show tonight for NXT? John's already given a thumbs down, so that lets you know what you need. But on a scale of 1 to 10,
let's go with 5.9.
Yeah.
It was below average. It wasn't building up to anything. There wasn't. I don't know. Luke Goddard gave a rating. I haven't watched in 2 months out of 10. So
That is fantastic. Oh, that is good. I'm sorry, man. Like right before the show, I saw a tweet that said like, "Time for NXT." Can't say I look forward to the show anymore. We're here to talk about it.
I really don't. I don't.
We're here to talk about it. We will continue to talk about it. But if you ask me, do I look forward to it? I don't know if I can say that, man. Especially in a world where two of my favorite guys, Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, and more people have already left, and those guys might be leaving potentially. That it's time to change in, and then I would say not for the better.
I don't know, because DJ gives it a 2. Luke pretty much gives it a 2. Steven gives it a 5. Nesha gives it a 6. I mean, I gave it a 5.9. What about you?
I struggle to like ever give like a very low score. I feel wrong in doing so. My initial answer was to say I struggle to give it a 6. I give them credit for the WarGames stuff of building that a little bit. If they do, again, I'm talking about the whole show. If they do the old school, new school thing for the men's side of things with the WarGames, that will be like kind of a redeeming thing to look forward to kind of salvage this. I think a 6 is probably too generous, honestly. I don't even know. Probably more of like a 5.5, and that's very low for me. Even in like the worst of the pandemic era kind of things, never got that low. Kevin Taylor with the 4.4. So you guys, I mean, the fact that you guys are here commenting, saying that like that was that bad, I appreciate you. We appreciate you guys for talking and sharing your thoughts, for listening to us talk about trying to make the most of it here. DJ saying the poker moved it up for him. The poker moved it up for him to a 2.0. Otherwise, it would have 0. Again, I always say, if you like something and that I didn't like, if it quote unquote did it for you, more power to you. Like that's great. Like if I say I commend them for doing something different. I don't think that worked for me. But if you're saying, hey, I like that poker thing, it kind of worked and I enjoyed it, that's great, man. Like good. Wrestling is subjective. I can sit here and say, oh, I love NXT of old. I don't like it here, or the more often than not these the 2.0 thing, but other people are liking it, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm hopeful WarGames will be better. I'm hopeful that we're going to start building there, that it'll get better. It'll get better from here on out. Man, it's tough. The wrestling's always good. There's always been good matches. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez had a great main event. I will say that. Next week we got Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and Kamal Hayes. I'm sure they're gonna have a great match. So like, there's stuff to look forward to. There's stuff to enjoy. But when it's littered with all this other stuff, poker and sexy boy karaoke from a couple weeks ago, like it's rough. It can be rough. But that being said, no matter what, we'll be here. We're not going there. We'll be talking about it. We'll be trying to make the most of it. We'll be here next week to talk about it. We'll be here on Monday Night Raw to talk about it. We got Survivor Series, if in case you forgot, because they've been barely building up to it. Survivor Series is on Sunday. So John will be there in person. We'll figure out the post-show and such for that. John's pumping his fist because, man, you're going to the Barclays Center. It's a very, very nice arena there. It's going to be a fun time. I imagine Build hasn't been great, but I imagine it'll be a very good show by the time it's all said and done. Otherwise, Robert DeFelice and I'll be back here on Friday, talk about Friday Night SmackDown. If you're part of Team AEW, two Diamond Dudes on the Rampage, Marcus and Dominic recently talked about Full Gear, a historic pay-per-view. And otherwise, we constantly have a great stream of interviews constantly with you guys, whether it's I interviewed Hornswoggle, and that went up last week. I interviewed Caprice Colin from Ring of Honor. So many things. Dominic D'Angelo recently interviewed Mick Foley, all like a whole spectrum of very amazing people. We have the opportunity to interview. Make sure to check it out. All our platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. We've got you covered. So leave a like and subscribe. John, you've got a question from DJ asking if you're going to be doing all shows Barclays or just Survivor Series.
I will not be there Sunday and Monday night. Just Sunday night, coming home Monday morning.
Yeah. But it's going to be a good show. I hope you have, I necessarily have fun. I hope you have fun as well. Definitely something to look forward to there. And again, I'll be here as always, comfortably on my couch, enjoying it from home, but enjoying it nonetheless, or hopefully enjoying it if it's a good show. And I imagine it will be. And we'll be talking about it for news coverage, for the post show, and whatnot as always. So with that, John, with that being said, whether it's NXT or Raw or SmackDown, which actually usually tends to be pretty good relatively, or anything in between, or anything that we don't even cover on these shows. No matter where it falls on the spectrum, no matter it's good, bad, or in between, we try to do one thing above all others when it comes to the wonderful world of wrestling. And can you tell me what that is?
Appreciate and enjoy the show.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.